Thank you, Reverend Greta Morgan. That was a lot of words to remember. Finally got it, you stopped. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out on this beautiful, glorious day. And so today's topic is returning home to the changeless. So as we walk this journey in life, at times, we can be tossed and turned by all kinds of circumstances, experiences, conditions. And we can occasionally get thrown off course and lose our way. We can now and again forget who we are. And I'd like to say whose we are. Has anything like that ever happened to you? It's a rhetorical question. Just think about it though. Sometimes we get tossed and turned by the conditions of life. And today we're going to move into how we can lay the rock, the foundation for living our lives while those conditions are going on, and remembering the changeless reality that is the truth of each and every one of us. And I suspect if you answered to any of those two questions, most of you would have said yes. Yes, this has happened. And if asked how many feel like that right now, I'm sure many of us would agree. So if you fall into either of those two categories, then you want to experience every talk this whole month, because it's all about returning to that changeless reality that is the truth of our being, that is within each and every one of us. And if you don't fall yet into one of those categories and everything is just so perfect in your life and wonderful, which is great, tuck it away for a time when you're going to need it, because you know life has that ebb and flow. Change is always taking place, because in this changeless presence that we're talking about this morning, we live a dualistic life. We are humans. We have positive and negative. We have happiness, we have sadness, we have both. It's not, as Martha Creek said last week, either or, it's and. Yes, we have it all within us because we're having this human experience. So we're going to use the following words by Ernest Holmes to anchor our quote for the month. He writes, "First at home, in the silence of our own thought, let us heal ourselves of fear, of doubt, of uncertainty. Let our lives be peaceful. Let us live our lives to be whole, and then shall that peace, which is God abiding within us, radiate from us." So being recognizing it within us in order for it to radiate out. And I have a quote from Charles Fillmore, founder of Unity, with his wife Myrtle. And it's from his book, Talks on Truth. "Let us not look abroad for power or for wisdom, but seek it at home. There in the silent recesses of our own soul, we shall find the pearl of great price. The well of living water must spring up within us. We are His beloved, and nothing short of His opulence will satisfy us." And that is the truth. That is the truth. So today we begin our journey by returning home to the changeless. This place within us, where Holmes and Fillmore have just spoken about, and even while we're in the midst of change, to have this anchor, this root, this knowing, this awareness that there is a presence that is unchangeable within each and every one of us. So did you hear the one about the middle-aged woman who had a heart attack?
No.
You feel like, how does this fall into my talk, you'll see. She was rushed. She was rushed to the hospital, immediately taken into surgery. While on the operating table, she had a near-death experience. In that experience, she saw God and asked if this was for her. God said, "Oh no, you have another 30 or 40 years to live." So the woman came back into her body, and after surgery, which was a great success, she was convalescing in the hospital. she decided to extend her time and have a little cosmetic work done. Why not? Might as well. She was there anyway, and you know, us women and some of you men might relate to that. She had another 30 or 40 years left, so look good, right? So she had the facelift, the liposuction, the tummy tuck. She even had the hairdresser come in and dye her hair. After she was lifted, tucked, dyed, and coiffed, she walked out of a hospital, a brand new woman, and immediately got hit by an ambulance and died. She arrived at the pearly gates of heaven in a pretty foul mood. I mean, she was a little angry there. And confronted God. What's the big idea? I thought you said I had another 30 or 40 years to live. To which God replied, to tell you the truth, you changed so much I didn't recognize. You know, I got funnier as that. I was up here telling it. It wasn't funny at home. Sometimes changes that come to us can seem so great that we don't even recognize them in our lives. We don't even recognize when the change is occurring. But today we're going to ground ourselves in that which never changes. That's the whole point of this whole month of sermons on this. And which is something we can always recognize. We can always know it if we do our spiritual practices of meditation, of prayer work every day, just connecting with that changeless presence so we become aware of it and we really use it. Remember, this is practical spirituality here. This is something to use, not just to talk about and sit here and listen, but something to take out into our world and really live. That's the beauty of these spiritual teachings that we give here, that we have here. So what I want to do this morning then is to give us a foundation, a really strong foundation for handling change. Any kind of change. Whatever the type, whatever the magnitude. Whether it's the type of change that makes us go, thank goodness, or goodness no. Either one. Whether it's finding a fabulous job or losing one. Whether it's getting married or getting divorced. Whether it's moving into your dream home or feeling forced to move because changes in life situation happens. Whether it's having a baby or losing someone, having a transition in your life. Whatever the change is we face, our foundation is the knowledge that there is one thing that has not, will not, and cannot change. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. And that is the thing itself, as Ernest Holmes quotes it in his Science of Mind book. The thing itself. And he writes this to describe it. Forms come and go, but the power back of them is changeless. Form is temporary, mind is eternal. That's a good one. Form is temporary, mind, which our divine self, is eternal. Change is always taking place within that which is changeless. So Emma Curtis Hopkins, how beautiful that Andrea read from that book. I didn't know she was going to read from that book because I have a quote from Emma, who we are studying in our Roots of Science of Mind class. She's called the mother of New Thought or teacher of teachers. And so in her book, Scientific Christian Mental Practice, she wrote, the spiritual or real world is not changed by our words. It is the same changeless good, yesterday, today, and forever. We might say that God is changeless in the ever-changing. And when we ground ourselves in this changeless, we have a whole new perspective on change. Remember that the changeless, God itself, the creative energy of all that is, was, and ever shall be, is always becoming more of itself. So it's always becoming more. So it looks like change. New people are born, new people die, planets are formed, or we discover a new galaxy. But it's all in this changeless good of our spiritual self that we're each and every one a part of. In fact, when we are grounded in the changeless, every change that comes into our lives can propel us forward. Doesn't have to keep us back at all, because change is going to happen. Have you noticed that? Change happens. You can try to avoid it. Good luck. Let me know if you can and how you didn't. So when we are grounded in the changeless, every change that happens has within it a possibility for greater good. Every change has within it the possibility of a greater good, even when you feel your foundation underneath you shift and move. And listen to what Jesus said about a strong foundation. I'm sure most of you have heard this. He writes in Luke chapter 6, "Whoever comes to me and hears my sayings and does nothing is like a man who built a house on the earth without a foundation. And when the flood arose, the stream beat vehemently against that house, and immediately it fell, and the ruin of that house was great. But he who hears my words and follows them is like a man building a house who dug deep and laid the foundation on the rock, against which the stream beat vehemently, but could not shake it, for it was grounded and founded on the rock." So what does he mean then by his words? Hear my words and follow them. Well, Jesus told us over and over again to live a spiritual life. To live a spiritual life. Connect with that internal, that forever expressing God within each and every one of us. To trust that God, this divine energy that we call God, that is in this unified field of oneness, is our sole support. That is the challenge. When things are going on in our lives and we're reaching and grasping, and I do it myself, I say, God is my support. God is my support. And I believe that. But this part of me that's hardwired in the reptilian brain goes, oh my God, I gotta flee or fight. I gotta flee or fight. But still at the same time, going back to God is the source. God is the source. All things are possible. It is scary sometimes. It really is. Having this human both going on at the same time. Joy and sadness. Abundance and then lack. We have it all. We can relate to it all. In other words, then, it's to keep our spiritual vision clear. To trust that which is changeless. That eternal self. That is how we will build a foundation of rock. A strong foundation in which to live this life in. So that any storm that occurs, we're grounded. We have that spiritual awareness within us. This is the gift we give to ourselves, only through our awareness. It's the only place it can take. It's the only way it can take place, is through our awareness. The death of a loved one is the most severe change we will ever face. And it is through that kind of experience, though, that our recognition of the changeless is vital. We know that we are eternal beings. And we're all going to die. But as we lose someone that we deeply love, that is one of the hardest things to move through. But knowing that there is this eternal presence to support us can give us that rock foundation that is so needed. We may face many, many changes of lesser severity on a regular basis. So let us also remember that that change, whatever the magnitude of it is, that when one door shuts, another is open. And when that door shuts and locks shut, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity through the changeless Spirit of God within us to find an open door. Limitless possibilities, right? We say that. Limitless possibilities. There's always one. There's always another door. When we have the patience and the faith and the love to look for that open door, we will always find it. We're never really alone. Might feel that way, but we're not ever really alone. So an affirmation I thought of was, I am open and receptive to my greater good, always knowing that when one opportunity or one situation ends, a new way of being begins. A new way of being begins. I am open and receptive to my greater good. Great to have those little affirmations to keep us centered and rooted on that rock of the changeless. And I once said, in fact, I wrote it on Facebook, which is where I write a lot of my stuff. It is true that when one door closes, another opens. But I have to tell you that sometimes that hallway, any of you that read it, is a real bitch. It is really challenging. And that sometimes that's the only word you can use to really, describe things. It can be really challenging, that hallway in between. And it's true that that hallway can be really, really challenging. But we know that if we are anchored and grounded in the knowing of that which does not change, that is within us, I can't emphasize that enough, because we keep thinking it's out here. And we keep hearing everyone tell us it's in here. And maybe we don't feel that yet. But I say that if you continue these spiritual practices, you will develop a relationship with your indwelling God of your understanding. So never allow changes in your experiences to become a closed door where you don't see any other option that bars your path to progress. Know that every ending is also a beginning. Every ending is a beginning. And I love this here. This is an example. I used this a couple of years ago. This is from a composer. This is about an example. Composer Franz Joseph Haydn. As a small child, he was trained to sing and was taken at the age of 8 into the cathedral choir of St. Stephen's in Vienna. Here he sang solo parts and received valuable musical instruction as well as earning his living. He was a member of the choir for 9 years, and when his voice broke and the director fired him, he was turned out into the streets at 17. He had lost the only life and livelihood that he had known, and he was penniless. Yet, he soon made a better career as a teacher, then a composer. In 1760, he was made musical director at the court of a prince in Austria. He held this position most successfully for 30 years. Then the prince died, and the musical group was disbanded, and Haydn, now 58, was once again out of a job. He accepted commissions and for 2 composing and conducting ventures in London, and again did some special teaching for the young Ludwig von Beethoven as a pupil for a short time. He was during that time writing some of his absolute best works, some of the most famous works that he wrote. Twice in his life, 2 times, he had been cast aside, but built a new and better life each time. So when I say one foot in front of the other, change takes place. Things we don't like are going to happen. How strong is your foundation? Can you walk one foot in front of the other? And as Martha Creek talked about last week, fact or fantasy. Yep, the fact is, I lost my job. The fantasy is all the stuff we make up afterwards about that. My God, the best one, I'm gonna be on the street homeless. Really? We go right to that place. What will people think of me? All kinds of, and we go on and on and on and build up. It's all fantasy. That's fantasy. There's only one fact. The fact is, he lost his job twice. Both times, he put one foot in front of the other and moved ahead. So that's for us to remember when we need it. That is for us. So if you already have your house built on the rock to meet every change with unchanging faith in the certainty of the divine flow, if you don't have it already, get it now. Get it now. Come join us in a class. We build in those classes. We do work. We build our foundation. You're here today. You're hearing it. So you're getting it also. And don't be like the Scottish atheist who was spending a quiet day fishing when suddenly his boat flipped over. It was attacked by the Loch Ness Monster. The beast tossed him high in the air. Then it opened his mouth to swallow him. As the man sailed overhead, he cried out, "Oh God, help me!" All at once, the scene froze in place. And the atheist hung in midair. A booming voice came down from the clouds. "I thought you didn't believe in me." "Come on, God," said the atheist. "A minute ago, I didn't believe in the Loch Ness Monster either." So, my friends, we can put some laughter in with our deep awareness of building that strong foundation, getting a grounding, a good, strong grounding in place so that you have it for when you really need it. So I invite you for a moment to ground yourselves in the changeless, to make friends with it, to embrace it, to know it, to recognize that God is ever present, omnipresent, ever available, as near as your hands and feet, as close as your breath. Even as one door closes, even as you walk down that hallway that can be challenging, even before you find the new door, and even as you open the new door, that's God's changeless love, peace, and power are ever with you. So use this time right now in all of our lives to build this foundation of solid rock underneath. In your own heart, in your own mind, in your own way, make a connection, make a real connection with this changeless reality, the eternal one. And this is how we return. It's the beginning of the talks, as I said, of returning home to that changeless presence that is always there to support us. And so it is.
So it is.